Hey Track Gang, what's going on in this week's episode of the Boeville in Newtown? Well, it's right over here. Stand by and we'll get into what's happening this week. Well, hello Track Gang and welcome to episode 4. I got it right this time. Unlike last week where I said it was episode 2, it was actually 3. This is number 4. It happens to be January the 18th of 2025. Welcome to episode 4 for 25. Anyway, I've got some really interesting things here to talk about. But first I want to talk about this Bachmann Western Maryland caboose that my wife got me for my birthday. This is I didn't realize how detailed this thing is. Bachmann did a really nice job with the detail on this. I mean, it is really nice looking. The ladders and the railings they've got a little bit of flex to them. That's really nice. But yeah, I mean, this thing, and it's heavy. I haven't weighed it yet. But I'm waiting for the scale to turn on, and this thing weighs 29 or 2.9 ounces. So that's pretty close, I think, to standard weight. So really, really nice unit. I just got finished putting a horn hook on one end because that will be for, since I used the SD40s for through freights, that one needed to be horn hooked on one side and KD'd on the other, so I took off the Bachmann Easy Mate. I'm going to leave the other Easy Mate on there for the time being. I'm going to tempt fate. I know that they're not exactly the greatest of things, but we'll see how that holds up. But yeah, got to go ahead and just put together a caboose card for that so I can add it to the roster, and then we'll be good to go there. We can actually use, well, not that we haven't, on the railroad, the Western Maryland had been using that new GP40, or SD40, I'm sorry, not GP40, SD40, that Mr. Ron Montague sent me for Christmas, has made a run across the railroad. That was in the history video that is now my channel opener. So if you haven't seen that video, I will try to remember to link it in the description below because there's some interesting little tidbits in there. And of course, last week's Sidetrack Sunday, I kind of went into the old box of stuff that I had done when we were planning on doing this with my dad. So, any rate, that's where we're at with that. Now, I just got back from Home Depot because I needed to get parts to be able to update my airbrush station, and as you can tell from the thumbnail, that's what this video is really going to start off with, is going ahead and working on these two airbrushes, getting them both set up to where I can use either or all the time. I was hoping to be able to tee it off and then put valves in to where I could go ahead and shut one off, and vice versa. Unfortunately, they didn't have valves in the size piping that I needed. So it's not a big deal. It's okay. For the time being, I'm just going to run with it. We'll see what happens. If it becomes a problem, then I'll revert it back to the way I've got things now, and I'll just have to disconnect and reconnect. It's not the optimal way to do it, but it's where we are. So let's get over to the airbrush station, and we'll take a look at what we got. Okay, so it may have been easier to actually do this over at the bench, but what the heck, we're here now. So I'm going to dig into this bag of stuff, and oh yeah, went to Michael's and got myself some more gray paint, so that way I can mix up some more primer, because we're going to be needing that. Let's see what's in the bag here. Okay, so we've got a 1/4 inch adapter. We've got a elbow. We have another 1/4" adapter. We have a T. And we've got another elbow. And of course, the actual part that connects to the airbrush, I left upstairs in my jacket. Alright, well, I guess I'll be back, because I need that part. Okay, so what do you say we try this again without the oops? I don't know how close I can get to actually you all being able to see the compressor back here, unfortunately. I'm not sure if this is really going to show up or not. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I've got the connector here, and this is the original male-to-male that I had that was feeding the airbrush connector that feeds the hose. So that's what this one looks like. This was a lot thinner or a lot smaller than the connector that's on for the other hose, which is no big deal. It's just the way it's set up. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to come off that connector, and of course I'm sure my plumbing buddies out there are going to laugh at me here, but that's fine. So we're going to thread that on there, get it nice and snug. Alright, now for the next part, provided of course I can get the stupid bag open. This has been the issue even when I bought the wrong parts last week to do this. It actually probably would have been the right parts, provided of course I didn't have this particular setup. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of Teflon tape on here. Probably really don't need it. It's not like it's holding any type of liquid, but it's also helpful if you don't throw it on the floor. And it's also helpful if you don't get it all sorts of screwed up as you're trying to put it on here. First thing I got to do is I got to rewind this a little bit, and this is what I'm doing. I'm sorry I didn't have it on camera. I've gotten bad about that. So we're going to go ahead and put a couple of wraps of Teflon tape on there. And again, drop stuff on the floor. Why not? And so that I'm not trying to do this while it's actually on the compressor, I am going to try and wrap up the other side here. Again, probably not really needed, but snug that one up. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put an elbow on. I know this is probably about as fun as watching paint dry, but it is what it is. Alright, and again, because of the fact that once it's on there, it might be a little bit more of a pain in the butt to put the tape on. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing one more time, at least for this side. I still have to do the other side yet. Alright, so now we're going to put that on, snug that up, and then we're going to take the airbrush. Actually, we're not going to put that one on there. We're going to put this one on here because this is a shorter airline. So we'll put this one on here, and this is the one for the single action brush. And that's it. Sweet. Of course, it would have been better if I hadn't screwed up and put the airline behind the other airline, but that's okay. We can work with that. I am probably better off taking the bottle off of here for the moment, so I can actually detangle that airline a little bit. Now, one of the things I had done, and I don't think I actually showed this, is I had printed out on the 3D printer. Oh, come on. Why doesn't that want to go back on there? Here it goes. Nope. It's probably because it was because the gasket got loose. I had actually 3D printed a caddy for the airbrush. The problem is that the single action brush doesn't actually fit on the holder. So I've got a rubber band that holds it in place when I'm not using it. I'm not sure if that shows up over here or not. There you go. So there's my dual action brush that I got for Christmas, or I'm sorry, for my birthday. And then the single action brush is on the other side. And like I said, the way it's set up, I have to use a rubber band to hold it in place. But, so that's one side. I'm going to go ahead and go off camera for a bit and work on the other side and hook up the dual action. So we'll be back. Alright, sweet. You probably hear air escaping. That is from the water trap, or the moisture trap. And that's because right now I've got the pressure coming through here set to 30 psi. So then I've seen some things that say that that's a good place to start. So that's where we're at. That's cool. That worked out well. There's no leaks from what I can feel, which is what we want. We've got our single action connection, we've got our dual action connection, and I just tested the dual action and I've got spray, so we're good. So that's that project out of the way. Now we're going to get into something that I wanted to touch on from last week. Let me get this thing back on me. Not that you want to see me, but you know. Turn the noisemaker off. And that is my 3D printed cabooses. I actually found something out, and I'm going to go over here back to the workbench and we're going to touch on what I found. So give me a minute, we'll be right back. One of these days I'm actually going to get things set up down here to where I'm not constantly having to shuffle, but it is what it is for the moment. You're going to wonder what that's about, and that'll probably be in the next video, because we're going to be talking about, well, now that I've got the brushes set up, we're going to be talking about that. But I also went to, when I was at Michael's, I also got myself some more X-Acto blades because my blades are getting dull. Probably about as dull as my personality, but that's beside the point. Okay. Anyway, we were talking last episode about the bay window caboose, and I really like how it turned out. I mean, the cab itself is really, really nice. There's a lot of detail in here for what it is. I mean, obviously it's a 3D printed caboose. The same thing goes for the normal caboose, the cupola caboose. Now, I said that I had screwed up a couple of the bases, and I was right. I had screwed up about 3 of them. The program calls for the base to be printed on its side like this, and as you can see, this base is really in really good shape. And in fact, it's in better shape looking at it in the light than what it was looking at it out there. I do have a little bit of cleanup left to do on this, But I had printed out a second one because I thought that I had seen issues with the first one, and you can see what I was talking about, maybe, with the structure that's holding this thing together. Originally, I thought all this was solid, and I'm like, there ain't no way in heck that's going to come off of there without tearing up the rest of the stuff that you want to keep. It's not. It's hollow, which makes it a lot easier to pull away from what you're trying to save. So I will give this print, I'll give this guy a 5 out of 5 because that's really cool. Like I said, I just have to go back on the one that did print earlier. I do have a couple things that I want to clean up. It's mainly on the steps. These parts here inside the steps is really hard to get into. This one here that doesn't have anything in it. This one here does. And I'm sure that anybody that's watching that's messed around with 3D prints is going to be like, well, you know, you can change the settings and so on and so forth. You have to remember one thing, folks. I've been playing with this thing since just right before Christmas. I'm by no means an expert with this thing yet at all. So I'm still learning. And of course, from what I've heard from Brian over at the Iron Horse and Dave over at DB Tech, and John up at the Schuylkill, you know, there is a learning curve to it. In fact, here it is. Brian's got, what is it, 6 different printers running. I think he's got 3 resin and 3 filament. And he was having issues with one of his resin printers the other day where it wasn't printing correctly. And I think he ended up finding out there was a problem with the actual resin. So, you know, here it is. Even the seasoned vets have issues with these 3D printers. They're not a set it and forget it. You do have to futz with them, depending on the filament, depending on your environmental conditions. You know, that is, it's all a part of this. And, you know, I think it was Joe Rader had mentioned, you know, why not just go out and find one at the train show? Well, yeah, I could do that. I was trying to find some way that was maybe a little bit more economical than, and number one, and getting what I want, number two. Originally, I was going to do 2 cupolas and 1 bay window, but now since I've got 2 bases, I'm actually going to go out and print another bay window caboose. So for the B&N, we'll have 2 bay windows and a cupola caboose, which actually works out well because in reality, I've got 2 local units, and I've got one, well, the F7s will eventually, or the FP7s will eventually be through freights. So theoretically, the through freights can use the cupola, and the local freights can use the bay windows. Because from what, and this is one of those things, here it is, it's my railroad, I can do what I want, I get it. But the way I understand it, to a point, you know, the cupola cabooses were mainly used on longer runs, and then the bay windows were mainly used in your switching scenarios, which makes sense. You know, you needed a little bit more visibility down the side of the train or whatever to be able to make the switching moves. So that kind of makes sense. So that's the premise that I'm going to be going off of. Whether it's right, who knows? Doesn't matter. Now, Jason, the train freak, had actually mentioned on my last video, he says, oh boy, here he goes. Next thing you know, he'll be printing out locomotives. No, I'm not going to be printing out locomotives. I was actually kidding with Jason going, yeah, I think the next thing is going to be some box cars and some refrigerator cars and things of that nature. Yeah, he's like, well, just leave it all undone. That way you'll have a ghost train. Oh my gosh, some people in this group, I swear. Anyway, so I am going to continue down the path of messing with the 3D prints and making my own stuff. Well, I say making my own stuff. Yes, I'm using somebody else's program. I am going to start messing around with CAD a little bit. I am not very familiar with it. The last time I played with a CAD program was when I was in electronics school. And that was drag and drop, you know. Oh, I need a resistor over here. You drug a resistor and dropped it in. Oh, I need a capacitor over here. And drop the capacitor in. You know, before you actually started messing around on a breadboard. For those of us that remember breadboards. Actually, for those of us that actually remember resistors, capacitors, inductors, transistors, things of that nature, diodes. You know, and we're not talking LEDs, we're talking diodes. And putting them on a breadboard and seeing how it works before you actually solder it to an actual electronics board. That was one of the neat things with that CAD program, is you could go ahead and put together a circuit and then apply power to it and see if it was actually going to do what you wanted it to do without actually blowing up parts. Although we did get the chance to blow up parts, and if anybody has smelt a burnt resistor, that's something that you don't soon forget. That is a nasty stench that comes off of them. Anyway, I've talked for 7 minutes here. I need to get some work done. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to get some stuff together here, and we'll be back. All right, Trek Gang. It is now Thursday, and I did not get anywhere near as far along as I wanted to. Namely, I came across a problem, and I think it was something. It was probably, and in fact, I know it was probably the way I pulled the tape off. That was probably part of it. But what happened is, and it's not going to show up on camera, but I started to paint these, and if you look at the front, the very front of this thing is, it's a little, or at least the yellow and orange stripe are a little screwed up. And that's the fact, because of the fact that when I pulled the tape back so that I could paint the blue on here, it actually peeled the paint off. It literally took the primer coat off with it. And it's not like the tape had been on there for months or weeks or anything like that. It had only been on there a couple days. But my guess is I guess there was a spot on the nose of that just didn't get clean. And when I pulled the tape, it pulled the paint with it. Now, the other one, I have got that one masked up to put the blue on the nose, because it's going to get blue on the nose, and then the top will get black. And then the venting on the sides, I'm going to do something a little different with that. So it's moving along. It just didn't move along as well as I wanted it to. And you have to pardon me, I'm scooting around here because I wanted to show a couple other things. Now, two things actually that had come up was the cabooses, and the fact that I was having issues getting them apart or getting the parts off of them, which for the most part I got figured out. I found out that there is a way to get the build or the supports off of this without destroying things and without having to use a heat gun. Of course, it took two or three times to figure that out, but regardless, I have not one, but two of the bay window cabooses, and I've gone through and I've cleaned up all the flash and the extraneous stuff that was on there, so those are good to go. The cupola caboose, that had pretty much been ready. I did do some cleanup work on it. That's ready to go, with the exception of the fact that when I was trying to get the build stuff out of the steps, I broke one of the steps off, which has brought me to another one of those neat little issues with resin printing or filament printing, and that is the fact that I'm not sure if it has something to do with the crazy glue that I've got or what, but this stuff does not glue very well. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. I will figure that out. That'll be another attempt at futility, I'm sure. But we'll see. And I know that Dave over at DB Tech had said something about he had another set of trucks that he actually sent me. I haven't printed them out. I haven't even downloaded the file yet. I did, believe it or not, and I'm not sure if they're still watching this week or not, but I'm going to put it out there. I don't remember the name of the channel. I'm sorry, because I'm not in front of my computer. I'm back here, obviously, at the workstation, or the workbench in the spree booth, but they mentioned that there's a way to go into the slicer and change the the way that things are set up. And the other thing of it is he was telling me, or they were telling me, that the default slicing programs that come with a lot of these printers leave a little bit to be desired. So that you're better off going out and getting a better slicing program, which I haven't done yet. I'm still learning this stuff. So, at any rate, I appreciate all the comments on that. I really do, because, you know, between the Sidetrack Sunday gang and the other folks that are watching, you know, this is great information, stuff that I'm going to be looking out for, moving forward. But, you know, I did want to show you another project that I'm working on, because I've got stuff, right now I've got stuff that's going on simultaneously, because I'm like, well, as I'm painting and working on the 3D print stuff, I am doing some stuff out at the layout, but I think I'm going to save that for the intro next week, because I ordered up some trees, and not from Long Shadow or anybody else. I found some place on Amazon that had 60-some trees that were really cheap, and I bought them, and they're kind of on the small side, which is not a bad thing. The problem is the fact that where I want to use them became a bit of a problem. So I've come up with a unique solution as to how I'm going to do those, but I'm going to need probably 2 or 3 more packages of the damn things. So, any rate, don't forget Bob. Oh, actually, before I get into that, if you haven't seen it, Ron from Classic Model Trains, if you don't follow him, I'm going to put a link down below. He actually had an interview with a local TV station out there in Montana where he's from, and they did a really good job. It was like a 2-minute spot, and he also put a video up on YouTube. Actually, he put that up on, he put the full interview on his Facebook page, but put up the interview and the background take up on his YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Like I said, I'll put a link down below to his channel or to that video, and you can go take a look. So with that being said, don't forget Bob over at PK&W Model Works has got Sidetrack Sunday this week. He's talking about the carbon black industry. This ought to be interesting. So with that being said, that's 8 p.m. U.S. Eastern, Sunday night, Sidetrack Sunday. Bob over at PK&W. You all know the deal. Wait for the highball. Green tracks ahead. Be safe. God bless. We will catch y'all next time. See ya.